FM News Talk 97.1.
On demand audio. You're listening to Allman in the Morning. Common Sense Radio.
Good morning, you bunch of drunks.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for calling into the show, my friend. What's up?
Hey, I just had a question about what you thought about collective bargaining and or unions as a whole. And is it like a stereotype? I feel that I'm a conservative and I voted that way. My grandparents, they've taught me to. They've got money. I've learned that. And I've never been really like, I work for my own. But do you feel that it's a stereotype that Republicans or Republican Party and or candidates are kind of like against unions?
Yeah, it is. Well, it's not just a stereotype. They are sometimes, and ridiculously so. And I'm glad. I think a lot of people who listen to this show on a regular basis have heard this before, so I hope they forgive me for repeating myself. But I've been oftentimes railing against this conservative reflex, which is always to lump, for instance, public employee unions with trade unions. And to constantly, every time even the word union is mentioned, they attack it, bash it, ridicule it, what have you. I try to explain to some people that I have a lot of people who are union members who listen to this show.
Yep.
And who
I'm
have
a member of the NRA as well. Yeah,
there you go. Who have houses and boats.
I work my balls off every day, and
yeah.
I feel that a lot of unions have roots.
No, here's my.
Not all of them are bad.
No.
I mean,
and again, Steve, as I pointed out, for instance, the public employee issue is a different issue than for instance, the trade union. So, as I pointed out before, the guys who are pipe fitters and what do you do again?
I'm a carpenter.
You're a carpenter. Yep. Electricians, these guys, they all have relationships with companies that if the companies didn't want the relationship, they wouldn't have to have the relationship.
Right.
Oftentimes, relationships between trade unions and companies work out very well because there's a give and take. The company appreciates the cohesiveness of a unit of individuals who are working hard and who are interested in the prosperity of the company. And, of course, the unions are appreciative of the company because if the company doesn't prosper, then they don't either.
No, they're feeding my family.
Right. So you have a pretty good relationship. Obviously, there are some things that like, for instance, I know the UAW has had some issues with some demands that people have not been in favor of. I get all that. But for the most part, when you look at these trade unions, it's normally a pretty good relationship. And like you guys, for instance, you have a real good investment in prosperity and growth right now, and you need it. You can't have anybody getting in the way of your company. And actually, a lot of you talk to a lot of trade unionists, they'll go to the mat for the company they're working for.
Right.
Much like they would with their union. And it works out with public employee unions. It's a different story because there's no real representation on the part of, for instance, the taxpayer at the bargaining table. You know what I'm saying?
As if the taxpayer is the employer.
Right, exactly.
Which technically they are.
Well, technically they are, but really what happens is up in Wisconsin, for instance, you had the public employee unions, which are basically at the table there. You have the politicians who are getting money from the public employees union who are at the table. Those two guys are hashing stuff out, and you get these unbelievably just unmanageable pension plans and things like that that just are not
like the
helping
75-25.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. And as I've tried to point out even during the whole situation in Wisconsin, what Scott Walker was doing was actually bringing a lot of the public employee unions to the levels of, for instance, trade union guys. Because right now, you look at the deal they have up there in public employee unions, trade unionists are livid about it because they're like, well, boy, I wish I were in a public employee union.
Right.
So there's no representation there.
Like
Unfortunately,
insurance after retirement and things like that. Which,
right.
Who the hell is going to pay for that?
And unfortunately, what happens is conservatives always lump the unions together. And so anytime you talk about unions, it's union thugs, union thugs. Well, right. People ought to be more precise because it's worth it, first of all, and it's more factual to be more precise about who you're talking about.
Cool.
All right.
I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. Get out there and build, right?
Right.
All right, buddy. We hope to help you in that process, Steve. I appreciate you calling into the show.